Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. This album review video is on Icehouse, their third album called Sidewalk. I also have the original cassette here. I love my cassettes. Shout out to the cassette community out there. um, this is the second Icehouse album I reviewed. I did review their second album, Primitive Man. I gave it a 69 out of 100. Really strong score for their second album. This was a slight change for the band, kind of going into a little bit more of a electronic focused band, a little bit more into new wave. I think it's really important to understand the trajectory of, or the not even trajectory, but the direction of Icehouse by knowing that they were a cover band in a lot of their early career, from like 1974 all the way to like their first album in 1980 or so, 79, 80. They were a cover band, covering like David Bowie and T-Rex and a lot of Australian bands, I'm sure. And so they're good at covering bands. And then also, just before this album, in the previous year or two, they were touring with Simple Minds was touring in Australia, and Icehouse opened for them. What a great combo that must have been in 1981, 82. That must have been a really cool combo to see. But Icehouse was really inspired by what Simple Minds was talking about, and what they were, and the music they were doing. And it's hard not to be. I mean, Simple Minds in 81, 82 was fantastic. And I could see if you're a band and you have a keyboard player in your band, and as the 80s moved on, the early 80s, like I'm sure there was a lot of pressure to sort of sound sort of more new wave and incorporate that style more into your band than a traditional rock band, because the younger people wanted the newer sounds more, and you want to be a little bit hipper maybe, and sort of, but also it probably was a point to where there was a lot of pressure on all kinds of acts, from even popular ones, to incorporate more of a 80s sound in their music, and a big part of the 80s sound was having keyboards in it. That was the biggest part of it. So even though Icehouse already had a keyboard player in there, and like they really took it to the next level on this album, and because of those two things, of them being a cover band and being inspired by Simple Minds and the style, there's two songs on here in Shot Down and Sidewalk that sound very much like Simple Minds songs. There's also two songs on here that very much sound like Roxy Music songs. This Time and Stay Close Tonight are very much like Avalon period Roxy Music. So it's not surprising that Icehouse is feeling inspired by those bands and want to cover them, because they do a good job of that. And do I think it detracts them sounding like other bands? No, they're still good songs, but it does come up. It does. It's hard. It's almost impossible to, if you like Simple Minds a lot and you like Roxy Music a lot, and you like Icehouse a lot, like I do, or like all three of them, then you're gonna get. Every time I hear those tracks, I think of the other band. It's just hard to ignore. Doesn't mean that they're not good songs or something like that. I don't really detract. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some scenarios, because when you're dealing with forward-thinking music like electronic music, if a band sounds like another band, that you do get kind of a knock on that. But it's like natural with anything to compare something to something that's like something else. If you like that style, right? If you like a certain beer, and there's another beer, and you're going to compare it to that beer or whatever, it's just natural to do that, right? So, but the songs sound like the other bands for what it is. But yeah, that really highlights their change and their focus on here, because 4 of the 10 songs sound like other bands that are good bands, but other styles sort of evolving from their previous, a little bit more alternative rock and pop rock. Wouldn't say pop rock, because it's hard to say Primitive Man was pop rock, but it is more on the popular side of rock music. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like alternative music. Um, I don't know. It's kind of in there. Um, but lots of very good songs on this album. Lots of very consistent songs on this album. Lots of good grooves on this album. Icehouse as a band is really strong. Iva's singing is really good. I really like when he's in the more mysterious kind of ominous kind of singing, like on the original track titled Icehouse. If you know that track, which was their first big hit, it's an amazing track. There's quite a few on here where he sings a little bit in the more mysterious vein, where it's really cool, and he also does his really pop stuff like Crazy or Electric Blue that he's really successful in as well. Um, he's just and his ballads are really good too. I mean, Man of Colors, for example. Just amazing song. Um, but a lot of good songs on here. The production's really good on here. Mixing's really good. The mastering could have been a little bit more dynamic. If they were mastering in this time. I don't think that's. I feel like the song the instruments are recorded well. I feel like the mixing of the levels of the song are really good. But I just feel like there's some dynamics on some of the, and that could be, the original recording of the instruments could have been that. But I feel like it's just not like it just needs a little bit more polish on this album, dynamically. And I don't know if that's from the original recordings or if there was any kind of mastering done on this album. It just feels a little flat. But sometimes that's a good thing because I generally I don't mind if things are lower in volume because that gives me the opportunity to turn it up, right? I hate when albums are overmastered and you feel like you gotta turn it down because it's so freaking loud. I hate that. Case in point here is the total opposite. It's just low volume so you can pump it. Bump it up. Track number 1, Taking the Town. It's a good opener. The verses are good. The guitars are nice and cascading. In the background along with the bass, I really like the guitar sounds. The drums are really good. The second verse, chorus is okay for me. The chorus kind of loses a little bit of steam. Kind of makes it become a little too poppy, maybe a little cheesy. That's one of the things you gotta take when you like the Icehouse is there are some stuff that kind of verges into a little cheesiness. And it gets more as you kind of get a little bit older in their career. But every kind of album, has a couple songs that are sort of on the sort of cheesy side, a little corny. And Taking the Town chorus is kind of there for me, but really close to a very good song at 2 3/4 stars. You'll see how consistent this album is. It's just amazingly consistent. But there's really no upper echelon tier tracks for me in their career. I would say on here it's very close though. This Time I Like Better, 3 stars. Really like the chorus. The bass line, this is the one that kind of sounds like Roxy music. The bass line's really cool. It's nice and smooth, like you would expect a Roxy music sort of Avalon period song to sound like. The keys are really nice, and you gotta love the cowbell. Just rocking out the cowbell. There's 2 songs on here that rock out some serious cowbell on here. And you don't hear cowbell too much, but in the early 80s, you heard some cowbell. And this time's got your cowbell. Track number 3, Someone Like You, 3 1/4 stars. This is more like a traditional Icehouse song sounding. It's sung great. Verses are really good. Violins are a nice touch. Which is kind of unique. 3 1/4 stars. So the best song so far, but gets even better. 3 1/4 stars for Stay Close Tonight. Nice groove, bass line. The melody in the verse, a little darker and more eerie, is great touch as well. 3 1/2 stars. Gets even better. Don't Believe Anymore is the highlight of the album for me. 3 3/4 stars. Really close to 4 stars. Moody. Keyboards are powerful. Strong chorus. Great video too. I really like the video. 3 3/4 stars. Sidewalk, title song, is strong. It sounds like Simple Minds. It's 2 3/4 stars. I can't really say anything negative or super positive about it, but it is a good song. Same thing with Dusty Pages, 3 stars, very good song. I liked it a little bit better than Sidewalk. On My Mind, one of my favorites on the album too. Um, it almost sounds like No Promises by Icehouse. It kind of has that groove, that good eerie melody, good chorus. 3.5 stars. Really like this song. It's tied for my second favorite song on the album. But there's 3 songs that are tied for second favorite. Kind of crazy. It's how consistent this album is. Track number 9, Shot Down. A little more aggressive beat. Better than Sidewalk for me as far as the 2 songs that sound like Simple Minds. Keep saying that, but I love Simple Minds. So 3 stars for Shot Down. And then The Mountain. I really like this ending. It's beautiful tribal outro. It's got a lot of good things going on in it. A lot of good atmosphere. Um, there's a good B-side at the time, if you know Icehouse really well, called Java. It's kind of in that vein. Um, just really great atmosphere. It kind of sounds like you're in a jungle, or the mountain, like under some kind of mountain. Really nice track, 3.5 stars. So when I look at the tracks, my favorite track is Don't Believe Anymore. But Someone Like You, I'm sorry, Stay Close Tonight, On My Mind, and The Mountain, all 3.5 stars. So all of them are tied for my second favorite track. And then you look at the overall of the album. I have 8 of the 10 tracks above 3 stars, three or higher, but none of them are above 4. So, like when I think of the overall career of Icehouse, my probably my top 10 songs, maybe even more accurately would be to say my top 5 songs of Icehouse all time. There might be close to Stay Close Tonight, or I'm sorry, Don't Believe Anymore might be right in the top 5, if not outside the top 5. So when I look at their albums, like, the highs on some of the other albums as far as a particular song might be a little bit better than this album, but this has the most consistent albums. So, excuse me, I would think this might be the best Icehouse album in all. I have the stars add up to a 32, so 32 divided by 10 is a really strong 3.2, which puts it, let's see, 3.2 puts it around 74 or so, and I gave it a couple additional points for the consistency of the album and brought it up to a 76 out of 100. I think it's on the high side of very good. Yeah, that's my review for Sidewalk. It's a really good, consistent album. A couple songs do sound like other bands, but it's the great bands to cover. You're going to cover bands, cover Roxy Music Sound and Simple Minds if you're a new wave band. Because in a way, it's kind of like you're sort of taking the greatness about Roxy Music's end of their career, Avalon, and sort of bringing it into a new wave sound, and then you're trying to mimic one of the best new wave bands of the time in Simple Minds at that time. So, if there was any bands to sort of sound like, I can see why they were inspired to sort of do a sound like those, do a song or two like those bands. There's another song in I think the next album, Measure for Measure, or Measure to Measure, I just forget which it is. It sort of sounds like Aha. So probably Aha came out that year, and they sort of made a song that sort of sounds like Aha. So they've done that through their career at certain points. I'm sure there's some Australian rock bands that they sort of took some things from and sort of sounded like too. But and probably some certain things about David Bowie they took, and sort of made like their own. I can see the coldness in their first album being very much like the coldness of the Berlin trilogy that sort of David Bowie did around that time, and that has a certain coldness. So that they're inspired by other bands, and they do a good job of sort of taking that into their band. I think their band is really tight. No weak members, no weak. Everything's on the up and up about everything, and I think Iva is a really good front singer, and super nice guy, obviously. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts on Sidewalk by Icehouse. 76 out of 100. On the strong side of very good. Um, really good album. Really enjoy it. Yeah. Had to show my cassette one more time because I'm so proud of it. Love my cassettes. All right. Thanks so much for listening and watching.